I never thought I'd be that guy who'd get blindsided like this, especially not on what was supposed to be one of the happiest moments of our lives, our anniversary getaway. My wife, Emily, and I had been together for about 8 years, and we'd always had our ups and downs, but I genuinely thought we were solid. She was the kind of girl who knew how to hide her true colors until the moment she chose to show them, and I guess I was too blind or too in love to see the warning signs piling up. The weekend started off well enough. We booked a cozy cabin by the lake, just us, a few days to disconnect from the world and celebrate. Emily had been acting a little distant lately, but I chalked it up to work stress or whatever, not realizing how deep those cracks ran. She was always bitchy, snapping at me for little things, which was normal for her, or so I thought. She's the kind of girl who can be sweet 1 second and a complete bitch the next, and I'd gotten used to walking on eggshells around her. Still, I never imagined she'd be capable of lying to my face. That night after a few drinks, she was flirty, joking around, and I thought maybe she was just trying to lighten the mood. But then I saw her phone lying on the nightstand, screen lit up. I didn't think much of it at first, just a casual glance. That's when my stomach dropped. There were messages, not just flirty stuff, but explicit conversations, plans to meet up, secret emojis, and even some half-naked pictures. My wife, my partner of 8 years, texting another guy about sex like she was some kind of cheap slut. Her words were disrespectful, cruel, even talking about how she was going to take him during our anniversary, how she couldn't wait to finally get some real action. I froze. I couldn't breathe. My mind spun so fast I felt dizzy. I looked closer and I recognized the guy. It was Jake, my best friend since college. I'd always trusted Jake, always thought he was a decent guy, and now I found out he was just as much a part of her lie as she was. This wasn't just a slip-up. This was planned, deliberate, behind my back. She hid her phone so well I never suspected a thing, but somehow I'd caught her. The worst part was the knowing they'd planned this whole thing behind my back, that they'd betrayed me on what was supposed to be a celebration of our love. I didn't sleep that night. I kept staring at the messages, the images, trying to process what I'd just seen. I felt humiliated, betrayed, angry, and honestly devastated. My best friend, my wife. They'd done this, and I was just the fool who didn't see it coming. I kept telling myself it was just a fling, just a moment of weakness, but deep down I knew it was much worse. They'd been planning this, maybe for weeks, maybe longer. All I kept thinking was how I'd been so blind, so naive. How I'd trusted Emily with everything, and she'd been lying to my face every single day. Next, I needed to confront her. But how do you confront someone you loved and trusted so completely, knowing they've been cheating on you with your best friend? I could feel my blood boiling just thinking about it. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself, knowing that whatever came next, it was going to change everything. And it did. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. My head was pounding, and the weight of everything I saw the night before still pressed down on me. I knew I had to face her, but I didn't want to do it right away. I needed a moment to breathe, to gather my thoughts, because once I confronted her, there would be no going back. I spent the morning pretending everything was normal, making coffee, pretending to enjoy the sunrise, all the while planning what I'd say. When Emily finally came out of the bedroom, she looked annoyed, like I was bothering her with my presence. I could see it in her eyes, that sharp, bitchy glare she always had when she didn't want to deal with anything serious. She was wearing her usual tight jeans and a tank top, and her hair looked freshly done, probably to impress whoever she was trying to meet later. I stared at her and felt a mix of anger and sadness. The thing is, she's good at lying, and she's good at acting like she's innocent or misunderstood. I knew she'd try to deny everything, call me paranoid, or twist it around to make me the one at fault. I didn't waste any time. I sat her down at the kitchen table, my voice cold but steady. "Emily, I saw your messages. I know what you've been doing with Jake." Her face instantly turned into a mask of contempt, like I was just some annoying fly she wanted to swat away. She rolled her eyes and flicked her hair back. "Oh, come on, Kevin," she said, her tone dripping with sarcasm. "You're overreacting. It's just sex, and it's not a big deal. Jake and I were just bored. It doesn't mean anything." She laughed, the kind of laugh that made me want to punch her. She had this way of denying everything even when the facts were right in front of her. I could feel my fists clenching, but I kept my cool. Bored, that's your excuse. You planned this. You were texting him about meeting up, about sex, about everything. How long has this been going on? Weeks, months, I said, voice trembling with rage. She crossed her arms and looked at me like I was some kind of inconvenience. Look, Kevin, I don't owe you any explanations. Jake's just a friend, and yeah, we've been talking. It's not like I ever meant to hurt you. I was just bored, and he's there for me. You're busy with work, always gone, always tired. Maybe if you paid more attention to me, I wouldn't have had to look elsewhere. Her words stung worse than I expected. It was classic Emily, blame-shifting, lying, making me feel guilty for catching her. She was a master at twisting the knife. I felt like I was losing my mind. The woman I loved, the woman I married, sitting across from me like it was nothing, justifying her betrayal. I wanted to shout, to scream at her, to call her all the names I was feeling inside. But I held back because I knew that if I lost control, nothing would ever be the same. Instead, I told her to leave the house. I needed some space, some time to think. She huffed and rolled her eyes again, but eventually she grabbed her bag, threw on her sunglasses, and stormed out without a word. That day was the worst of my life. I kept replaying everything, every lie she told, every false excuse, every moment I trusted her blindly. I was furious, but more than that, I was hurt. I kept asking myself how someone I'd trusted for so long could do something so cruel. How she could have planned this with Jake, my best friend, the guy I'd known since college. It was like waking up to a nightmare I couldn't escape from. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and utterly lost. And that's when I realized I needed to start thinking about what came next. I couldn't keep living in this whirlwind of lies and betrayal. I had to decide whether to fight for us or cut her out entirely. But for now, I just sat alone in that empty house, staring at her side of the bed, knowing I'd never see her the same way again. After she left that morning, I was left with the mess of my thoughts and a house that suddenly felt huge and empty. I didn't sleep that night either, just stared at the ceiling, replaying everything I'd seen. Every word she'd told me to justify her betrayal. It was like a punch to the gut every time I remembered her dismissive tone, her fake tears, her lies. I kept telling myself I'd be the bigger man, that I'd handle this maturely, but inside I was boiling with rage. How could she do this? How could she lie so effortlessly, manipulate me like I was some fool she could bend to her will? By the next day, I knew I needed a plan. I couldn't just sit around and let her keep lying or pretending everything was fine. I started digging into my options, trying to gather evidence, but honestly, I already had enough. My trust was shattered into a million pieces. I wanted to confront her again, but I also thought about exposing everything in a way that would hurt her just as much, maybe even more. That's when I decided I needed to see the full extent of her cheating, find out if Jake was just a fling, or if she'd been doing this for months. So, I hacked her email account. Yeah, I know it's not exactly legal or something I'd normally do, but I was desperate. I needed to know if there were more messages, more plans, more lies. And sure enough, I found a thread of emails, full of flirtatious talk, promises to meet up, and even some explicit stuff that made my stomach turn. It was like a punch to the gut all over again. She'd been lying to me not just with Jake, but with everyone around her, including me. What really made my blood boil was a series of texts she'd sent Jake, saying she couldn't wait to get away with him during our anniversary weekend. She'd even arranged a hotel for a secret rendezvous. I was furious, but I also felt sick. I kept asking myself, how deep does this go? How long has she been planning this behind my back? It was one thing to catch her texting someone, but to find out she was actively planning an affair on our anniversary. That felt like the ultimate betrayal. I needed to see her in action, to get her to admit the truth, or maybe to catch her in the act again. I decided I'd set a trap. I told her I was going out for a few hours, but I was actually going to check her phone, her social media, and her emails again. I wanted proof, real proof, so I could confront her properly. I didn't want to keep living in this fog of doubt and mistrust. I needed clarity. When I finally unlocked her phone and scrolled through her messages, I saw a new string of texts that confirmed everything. She'd been lying to my face all along. She called Jake her escape, her secret, and talked about how she was planning to leave me after the weekend. Leave me for him. I could feel my hands trembling. That's when I knew I had to confront her again, this time with undeniable proof. I didn't want to hear her lying her way out of this, not anymore. My mind raced with all the possible ways she might react. Would she deny it again? Would she try to manipulate me into feeling guilty? Or would she finally admit the truth? I wasn't sure what I wanted from her anymore, but I knew I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. I had to face this head on, even if it shattered whatever was left of my trust. So I did what I thought I'd never do. I waited for her to come back, and when she did, I confronted her with everything I found. Her face twisted into that familiar smirk, like she was about to play her usual game. But this time I was ready. This time I was done. When she walked through the door that evening, I could see it in her eyes, that flicker of arrogance, like she thought she could talk her way out of anything. I was standing by the kitchen counter, clutching her phone with all the evidence I had gathered. I didn't even bother to hide my anger. I just stared at her, cold and hard. "Emily," I said, voice low but steady, "I found everything. The messages, the plans, the hotel. You've been lying to me for months. You were planning to cheat on me on our anniversary with my best friend, Jake." Her eyes widened for a split second, then she scoffed and rolled her eyes. "Oh, please," she snapped. "You're overreacting. It's just sex, Kevin, just sex with Jake. Honestly, you're making a huge deal out of nothing. It's not like I ever meant to hurt you. I'm just bored. You're never around, always working. You think I enjoy being stuck in this marriage, that I want to stay in a rut forever. This is just my way of feeling alive again." Her voice dripped with disdain, like I was the one who'd done something wrong. I shook my head. "You're lying. You've been lying from the start. You planned this and you're trying to pretend it's no big deal. How long has this been going on? How many times have you cheated on me? How many times have you lied about where you were?" She crossed her arms, her attitude unapologetic. "Look, Kevin, I don't owe you an explanation. Jake and I were just having some fun. It doesn't mean anything. Honestly, I don't even know why you're making such a fuss. You're never around anyway. I needed someone who actually cares about me, who can satisfy me. You're too busy with your stupid job to pay attention to me." That word, stupid, hit me like a slap in the face. Stupid. After everything I'd done for her, after all the years of putting up with her bitchy attitude, her lies, her cheating, I felt something snap inside me. I took a step forward, voice shaking but loud enough. "You're a liar, Emily. You're a cheating, manipulative bitch. I don't know what kind of person you've become, but I'm done." She looked at me with this sneer, like I was the one who needed to be punished. "You're overreacting. You always do. It's just sex, Kevin. That's all it's ever been." She tried to dismiss what I'd shown her, acting like I was crazy for accusing her, but I'd had enough of her bullshit. I told her to get out, not just for that night, but for good. I couldn't stand to look at her anymore, knowing what she was capable of. She huffed and rolled her eyes again, but I didn't care. I wanted her gone. I told her she had until the morning to pack her stuff and leave. I needed some space, some distance from her lies. She stormed off to the bedroom, slamming the door behind her. I stood there, feeling numb, trying to process what just happened. That confrontation marked a turning point. I knew I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. I was hurt, furious, and feeling more betrayed than I'd ever felt in my life. The girl I thought I knew, the girl I married, she was a stranger now. And the worst part, I knew she'd try to manipulate the situation, paint herself as the victim, and cry her way out of responsibility. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I was done being her fool. The next morning, the house felt even colder than before. I woke up early, already knowing what I had to do. Emily had packed her bags. I heard her moving around the bedroom, her footsteps heavy with attitude. I didn't bother to look at her. I just sat on the couch, staring at the door, waiting for her to leave. I was a mix of exhaustion, anger, and a strange sense of relief that I finally saw her for what she truly was. She finally came out, makeup smudged, and her face set into that same bitchy expression she always wore when she thought she was right. She threw her bag over her shoulder and looked at me with a sneer. "So, this is how it ends," she said, voice dripping with sarcasm. "You're throwing me out because I had some fun, Grow up, Kevin. You're so insecure. You're just mad because I didn't want to be stuck with a boring guy who works all the time. Honestly, you're lucky I didn't just leave you years ago. I looked at her, feeling nothing but cold distance. You're right, I said quietly. I am mad. Mad that I wasted 8 years on someone who never really loved me, only used me. Mad that I trusted you and you turned out to be nothing but a liar. I hope you enjoy your fun, because I sure as hell won't be here to pick up the pieces anymore. She rolled her eyes again, muttering something about how I was overreacting, how I was crazy for throwing her out. But I didn't care. I'd made my decision. She walked out the door and I watched her leave, feeling a strange mix of relief and emptiness. As she pulled out of the driveway, I finally allowed myself to breathe. I knew the road ahead was going to be tough. I'd have to deal with the fallout, face the shame of what happened, and rebuild my life from scratch. But for the first time in a long time, I felt a flicker of clarity. I realized I'd been living in denial, giving her too many chances to lie and manipulate. That betrayal had shattered whatever trust I had left, but it also forced me to see the truth of who she was. And honesty, that was what I needed now. I had to focus on healing, on starting over. I knew I'd never forget what she did, but maybe someday I'd find a way to forgive not her but myself for trusting her so blindly for so long. Looking back, I learned that sometimes the worst betrayals come from those who are supposed to be closest, that the people you love can turn into strangers in an instant, and that the only way to truly move forward is to face the pain head-on, no matter how much it hurts. I don't wish her any ill will. Honestly, I just wish I'd seen her for what she was sooner, because now I finally see clearly. In the weeks that followed, I realized how much I had been living in a fog of denial. The house was quieter, emptier without her, but strangely, it felt a little lighter too. I started focusing on myself for the first time in years. I took up running again, reconnected with some old friends, and even started therapy, not because I was broken, but because I needed to untangle the mess of emotions that betrayal left behind. The hardest part was facing the shame of it all, feeling humiliated that I'd been so blind, so trusting. But I also learned something valuable. I was stronger than I thought. Betrayal cuts deep, but it also forces you to see things clearly. It's a brutal lesson in human nature and in the importance of self-respect. I realized I'd spent too much time trying to fix something that was already broken, and that true strength lies in knowing when to walk away. Looking back, I see how her lies and manipulations painted a picture of a woman who was never really committed. Her bitchy attitude, her constant lies, her ability to turn everything around on me, they all added up to a picture I ignored for too long. Now I understand that some people are just not worth the pain. The trust I lost can't be fully regained, and honestly, I don't want it to be. What I'd tell anyone in a similar situation is this: don't ignore the signs. Don't stay just because you're afraid of being alone or because you think it's easier than starting over. Because in the end, the only person you truly have is yourself. And if you're lucky, you'll find the strength to walk away from the betrayal, learn from it, and build a better life. I won't pretend I've moved on completely. That's a process. And I know I'll carry some scars for a long time. But I also know I've gained clarity and a renewed sense of self-worth. She may have betrayed me, but I refuse to let her define my future. I'm free now, and that feels damn good.